Okay, so are you ready to unpack this story? It's fascinating and baffling, all rolled into one.
I'm intrigued already. Just tell me more.
We're diving into the world of Eva C.
Eva C.
Yeah, this woman, her career as a medium, it was dazzling, but also so controversial.
I get that, whispers of her seances, the ghostly apparitions, those strange substances.
Right, exactly. So how much was real and how much was an elaborate illusion? And that's our mission today, to separate the genuine from the, well, creatively staged, shall we say, in the life of this pretty enigmatic figure, this Eva C.
Well, it's a story that takes us back to the early 20th century,
Okay.
a time when spiritualism was like all the rage. You had all these people reeling from World War I, the losses, and they were desperate for connection, for solace, for any glimmer of hope, really, from, beyond the veil. And it's with that backdrop that Eva C., this young woman supposedly touched by tragedy herself, enters the scene.
Okay, so picture this. Algiers in the early 1900s.
Okay.
And the setting, it's almost too perfect. A place called, get this, Villa Carmen, dripping with this air of mystery and intrigue.
Ooh.
And it's here that Eva C. begins hosting these lavish seances, claiming to channel the spirit Bien Boa, a 300-year-old Brahmin. Even the name Bien Boa, it's like something straight out of a fantastic tale, wouldn't you say?
Totally. It's brilliant. Even if it ends up being, totally made up, this backstory, a young woman who finds her powers, her fiancé dies, and then this exotic location, this centuries-old spirit, I mean, it's perfect for grabbing everyone's attention.
Oh, absolutely. But even in these early days, amidst the glittering gowns and the hushed whispers, they're in the shadows of Villa Carmen, there are these cracks in the facade.
Right.
There's this one photo from a seance, and when you look closely at it, Bien Boa looks suspiciously like, well, a cardboard cutout.
A cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
See, and that's what's so interesting, right? Because even back then, photography had this air of wonder to it, you know, like it captured something real. So if you wanted to believe in Eva C., that photo, it must have been a shock.
Oh, totally. And it gets even more interesting from there, or should I say revealing. One of the coachmen at Villa Carmen, he spills the tea. He was the one playing Bien Boa.
No way.
Yeah, the dramatic entrance, the disappearing act, all thanks to a hidden trapdoor. You'd think that would be it, right? The end of Eva C. busted.
Right, you would. But that's where Eva C.'s story takes this, well, it's unexpected, this turn. It actually, I think, reveals a lot about her ambition, maybe even like her understanding of how much people love a good mystery.
Yeah.
She doesn't just disappear, she leans into it, rebrands herself as just Eva C. in her seances. They get even more elaborate, more sensational. It's like she's saying, you think that was impressive? Just wait.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
She introduces ectoplasm into her act. So for those of us who haven't been to a seance lately, what exactly are we talking about?
All right. So imagine this, a darkened room. The air is thick with anticipation. And suddenly, there it is, this strange, white, almost ethereal substance. It starts oozing from Eva C., her mouth, ears, sometimes even her fingertips.
Oh.
And it might take on these shapes, morph right in front of you, defying all logic.
Hmm.
And in spiritualism, this ectoplasm, it was like the Holy Grail, tangible proof, proof of the spirit world.
So she goes from like a cardboard cutout to this bizarre, otherworldly goo. Talk about a bold move. And people ate it up.
Oh, absolutely. Eva C., she's the talk of the town. And not just the usual crowd. I mean, big names are paying attention now.
Like who?
Like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
No way, Sherlock Holmes' creator.
The very same.
Huh?
Utterly convinced by what he saw at those seances.
That's wild, but I'm guessing not everyone was on board with this.
Oh, of course not. You also had, like, Harry Houdini, this famous escape artist, magician, deeply skeptical of all the spiritualism stuff.
Right.
He saw it as his job to debunk these mediums, expose them as tricks, preying on the vulnerable.
So you've got Conan Doyle, the believer, versus Houdini, the skeptic, both drawn into Eva C.'s web. This isn't just about seances anymore, is it?
Not at all. This is about the nature of belief itself. It's really something, How Eva C. had these big names totally captivated, yet at the same time, people were suspicious. This says a lot about, well, her, but also how strong belief can be.
Totally. Even with the skeptics, she kept drawing the crowds in, weaving those illusions. But, I mean, they couldn't last forever, right? Especially with folks like Houdini on the case.
Exactly. It's like a cat and mouse game, with Eva C. always trying to stay one step ahead.
Yeah.
And, some of the evidence against her, it's almost funny when you think about it.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, there were these researchers, Dingwall and Woolley, and they're analyzing her, get this, ectoplasm, and they discover it's just chewed paper.
Wait, seriously? Chewed paper? She couldn't come up with something better.
Right. You'd think so. But then, that's part of what makes her story so interesting. It's bold, but then also kind of basic. Don't let that fool you, though, because the evidence against her gets even more serious.
Okay, now I have to know. What else did they find?
So you've got this other investigator, Donald West,
Yeah.
and he gets curious about those spirit faces that Eva C. is supposedly producing. You know, those ghostly images in the ectoplasm.
Yeah, I remember those.
Well, West, he digs deeper, tries to figure out where they came from, and guess what? Magazine cutouts.
Oh, way.
Yeah. Specifically, pictures of famous people taken straight from this popular French magazine, Le Miroir.
Hold on, so she's using like celebrity gossip as part of her seances. It's ridiculous.
I know. But she had this knack for giving the public what they wanted, even if it meant mixing up reality and, well, fiction. And remember, back then, photography still felt kind of magical. People thought it could capture spirits, proof of the unseen. But in Eva C's case, it ended up revealing her secrets.
Right, because the camera doesn't lie, at least not usually. And then there are those suppressed photographs, the ones that really change everything.
Those photos were taken by Juliette Bisson, Eva C's, well, companion. They were never meant to be seen publicly. And in them, you see how it's all done. The wires used for the ectoplasm, the assistants hiding in the shadows, everything.
Wow. So if those photos were so bad, why didn't they come out sooner? What happened?
Well, it turns out, even in the world of paranormal investigation, people are biased. The guy who had those pictures, Gustav Gelly, he really believed in Eva C. So instead of exposing her, he hid the photos. He basically ignored evidence that went against his own views.
Wow. Talk about a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So even with all this evidence against her, people still thought she was real.
It shows you the power of belief, Even with clear evidence, sometimes people stick with what they want to believe, what gives them comfort or a sense of something bigger.
Makes you wonder, did Eva C. believe it herself? Or was she just playing on people's hopes, their fears, especially in a time when they wanted something more? And what about Juliette Bisson, the woman with the camera? Was she in on it? Was she a victim? Or something else entirely?
Those are the big questions, aren't they? And those are the questions we're going to dive into in the final part of our deep dive. We'll explore this complex relationship, Eva C. and Juliette Bisson, and try to figure out what roles they each played in this whole extraordinary story.
So we've got Eva C., this woman climbing the ranks of spiritualism, only to have it all kind of crumble around her. Each exposed trick, each hidden wire, it's like another brick falls out of the wall. But even with all that, there's this whole other side to the story with Juliette Bisson, like their connection. It seems like there's more to it, right?
Absolutely. Eva C. and Juliette Bisson, they're not your typical medium and assistant duo. They had this dynamic. Historians even think they might have been romantically involved.
Wait, hold on. Are we talking about a love affair at the center of all this spiritualism? I mean, it was the early 1900s, but still, that's a scandal, even for a story like this.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? And Bisson's role, it gets more complicated. Was she a willing accomplice? Totally devoted to Eva C., okay, with the tricks. Or was there more to it than that? Some say Bisson wasn't just a participant, that maybe she had her own influence on their little operation.
Hold on, you're saying that Bisson, she might have been the mastermind? That changes things.
It's a possibility. And it's had researchers stumped for decades. You see, there are these stories about their seances that in the later years they took a darker turn. Less about ghostly faces and ectoplasm and more about, well, using psychology. Preying on people, those who were vulnerable, seeking comfort.
It's a good point, Even though we're talking about a century ago, that desire to believe, to find something bigger than ourselves, it doesn't go away. And there'll always be people ready to use that to take advantage.
Exactly. And it makes you think, where's the line between believing and being tricked? Did Eva C., did she start out as a con artist? Or was there a point where she started believing her own act, this strange mix of deception and, well, maybe even self-deception?
And Bisson, was she a victim caught up in it all? Or was she the one pushing, shaping their stories, taking things further?
Those are the questions, and we might never have the answers. That's what I find so fascinating about it all. You've got history, psychology, this human need to believe, even when faced with lies. It's a real puzzle box.
Makes you think Eva C., this psychic superstar captivating the world, revealed as a fraud, but still, her story gets people talking, even after all these years.
In the end, maybe the biggest takeaway isn't about whether she was actually psychic. It's about the power of belief itself. how we're all, drawn to the unknown, to stories that give us hope or make us wonder, those glimpses beyond what we see every day.
So to everyone listening, next time you're digging into history's mysteries, remember Eva C. This medium, she mesmerized a generation, and her story. Well, it reminds us that the most captivating mysteries often don't have easy answers. And that, my friends, wraps up our deep dive into the world of Eva C. Until next time, stay curious.